In the quiet grasslands of Europe, where sunlight filters through tall blades and dew clings to the morning air, something unnatural stirs. On the tip of a stalk, an ordinary snail has climbed higher than it ever should. Its eyes, once small and dark, are swollen, pulsing with colors, green and red bands throbbing like a living neon light. It looks almost comical, almost beautiful, like a carnival lantern glowing in the daylight. But this is no decoration. This is no accident of nature. Inside that snail, a parasite has taken control, an invader with a single goal: to sacrifice the snail, to turn it into bait. The snail does not know why it climbs. It does not know why it exposes itself to the deadly beaks of birds overhead. Its body obeys commands not its own. The parasite, Leucochloridium paradoxum, has transformed the snail into a zombie, its glowing, twitching eye stalks waving like irresistible lures. And soon a bird will see, a bird will strike, and the parasite's dark journey will continue. Beneath the quiet meadow, under layers of damp soil and fallen leaves, lies a hidden stage where the actors are invisible. These actors do not belong to the snail that will soon wander by. They come from birds, birds that once devoured another victim long ago. In the belly of those birds, the parasite's eggs survived the acids, the grinding gizzards, the digestive fire. And when the bird relieved itself, the eggs fell with the droppings, scattered across the ground, waiting in silence. A snail creeps closer. Its shell is dull brown, its movements unhurried. It tastes the soil, the moss, the droppings. For the snail, bird feces are food, a strange but common source of minerals. What it doesn't know is that every bite is laced with death. Within its gut, the eggs crack open. Out pour microscopic larvae, thread-like and restless, searching for a way out. They do not linger in the stomach. They crawl through tissue, slipping into the snail's bloodstream, hitching a ride to its most vulnerable places. They divide, multiply, and grow into sacs, gelatinous brood sacs, swelling with new life. For days, even weeks, nothing looks wrong. The snail feeds. It retreats into its shell at the first tremor of danger. It carries on as it always has, but inside its body is being rewritten. The brood sacs inch upward, toward the eye stalks, the snail's softest, most exposed appendages. And then the horror begins. The slender eye stalks begin to swell, no longer delicate and thin but grotesquely fattened, throbbing with unnatural life. Beneath the translucent skin, the parasites pulse in rhythm, flashing bands of green, yellow, and red sliding back and forth. The stalks twitch, jerk, wriggle, as if alive on their own. From a distance, they no longer look like eye stalks at all. They look like fat caterpillars, brightly striped, dancing on the end of the snail's head. To us, it looks alien, obscene. To a bird, it looks delicious. But the transformation does not stop there. The parasite reaches deeper into the snail's nervous system. It rewires instinct itself. Where the snail once sought shade and damp, now it climbs. Up blades of grass, up flower stems, out onto bare branches. In the heat of daylight, the very time it should be hiding, the snail parades its swollen, flashing stalks at the highest point it can reach. It does not know why. It cannot stop. Its will has been erased, overwritten by chemical commands. If someone plucks it from the stalk and sets it back on the ground, it will climb again, stubbornly, helplessly, until it is once more on display. The higher it climbs, the more the wind catches those glowing stalks, making them wag like flags. To birds, color plus movement is irresistible, and that is the parasite's only goal, to turn the snail into bait. Inside, the snail weakens. Its stomach competes for nutrients as the parasites siphon its energy. It grows sluggish, its reflexes dull. It no longer withdraws at the shadow of wings. It has become a billboard of flesh, an advertisement screaming, "Eat me." And when a bird finally swoops, the scene plays out as designed. The first strike lands on the swollen stalk, bursting the brood sac, scattering larvae into the predator's beak. They travel down its throat, into its belly, where they will grow, mature, and mate. Soon, more eggs will be scattered across the grass and droppings. The cycle continues. Cruel, yes. Effective, absolutely. The parasite does not hate the snail. It simply does not care. The snail is a vessel, a bridge, a disposable stage for the parasite's story. Sometimes the snail does not even die immediately. Its stalks can regrow, and the parasite fills them again. The process repeats again and again until the snail is little more than a hollow puppet, flashing signals for the sake of another's survival. From a distance, on a damp meadow morning, the field seems alive with tiny blinking lanterns. Scores of snails, each a hostage, wave their grotesque signals in the air. To a human eye, it might look strange but almost beautiful. To a bird, it looks like breakfast. To the parasite, it is triumph. Lean closer, and you'll see the details. Sunlight shines through the engorged stalks, illuminating veins of color sliding back and forth. The sacs pulse, not in rhythm with the snail's heartbeat, but with their own. It is a second rhythm, an alien metronome, ticking out commands the snail cannot resist. Climb higher, stay visible, lure the beak, be eaten. The snail is a victim, yes, but also a bridge. The parasite cannot fly, so it borrows wings. It cannot see, so it borrows eyes, turning eye stalks into decoys. It cannot hunt, so it makes its host offer itself as a sacrifice. Evolution has written a code that turns prey into bait, and bait into the parasite's salvation. And all of it begins with one careless meal, one taste of bird droppings, and one body rewritten by an invader that never leaves. On the grass stalk, the lights keep pulsing. In the soil below, more eggs wait in silence. And somewhere above, a bird sharpens its beak. High above the meadow, a bird circles lazily, its eye sweeping the grass for motion. It is not hungry enough to hunt in the hedgerows or stalk the shadows for beetles. It is looking for something easy, something that moves without thinking, something that offers itself. And there it is, a glint of color, a twitching ribbon atop a blade of grass. The decision takes less than a heartbeat. The bird drops, wings fold, air hisses past feathers. In a practiced gesture, it flicks its head and drives its beak toward the pulsing target. The swollen stalk bursts between the mandibles, soft as fruit, slick as jelly. A smear of green, yellow, and red splashes across the tongue. The bird jerks back once, twice, as if surprised by the texture, then swallows. What slips down is not just snail tissue. It is a cargo of life, thousands of larval trematodes, each no thicker than a line of ink, each already programmed for the next chapter. They tumble into the darkness of the throat, slide past the glottis, and enter the warm machinery of digestion. Stomach acids roar to greet them. Muscles knead, enzymes grab and tear, and still the larvae endure. They were built for this passage, honed by you can't imagine how many generations that failed so these would succeed. They navigate by chemistry, following gradients like travelers following the scent of smoke. They avoid what will dissolve them, crawl toward what will accept them. Soon they reach their destination, the bird's intestine, a long looping corridor of warmth and food, the quiet metropolis where nutrients become life. Here the larvae anchor. They unfold like umbrellas. They steal from the stream that should nourish the bird and use it to build themselves. In days, the intestine hosts new adults, flatworms scarcely noticed by their landlord. They have no faces, no eyes, no song, but they have a purpose: to mate, to fill their bodies with eggs, to turn a living creature into a conveyor belt for their lineage. The bird feels little, perhaps a light fatigue, perhaps a change so subtle it blends with the 1,000 tiny hungers and satisfactions that pass through a day. It preens, it sings, it launches into the air with a hunger that will never quite be satisfied. The worms inside it continue their work, quiet as shadows. Eggs ripen by the thousands. They await their moment like seeds in a storm cloud. And then, as the bird pauses on a fence post and lifts its tail, the cloud breaks. Droppings hit the ground with a soft sound the meadow knows well. Within them, armored eggs wait again, patient as stone. This is the beautiful cruelty of the cycle. What was once a snail's gaze has become a bird's burden. What was once a bird's meal has become a parasite's nursery. The meadow swallows it all, the drama in the beak, the chemistry in the gut, the quiet rain of eggs, without a ripple. Back at the stalk, the snail, if it survives the first peck, clings in a stupor. One eye stalk is tattered, its tip a wet, ragged edge. The other still pulses, stubbornly bright. The parasite within the snail is not done. It will send more brood sacs forward, inflate them until they throb against the light, and the performance will repeat. The snail is not the protagonist of this story. It is the stage that resets between acts. In the bird, the worms reach their crescendo. Adults pair and pass genetic messages between bodies that are less creatures than living factories. Each egg is a promise sealed in a shell. Find a snail, rewrite it, climb. The bird lifts into the air and scatters the promise over the meadow, the hedgerows, the damp shade under logs. The map of infection widens, circles within circles, each centered on a perch where the bird paused to rest. If you could see the field the way the parasite does, you would see a network glowing faintly with probabilities. Every blade a possible ladder, every droplet a delivery vehicle. Later that afternoon, the bird chooses a different meal, a beetle, a seed, a sip from a puddle. The worms are indifferent. They do not argue with their host's preferences. They only count time in the most patient way, by eggs laid, by distances crossed, by the number of silent sunrises between one generation and the next. Sometimes the bird carries the worms far, across hedged fields, across streams, across the edge of a village where lawns lie clipped and bright. The parasites do not care about fences or property lines. They ride the wild geometry of flight. They redraw the map of their realm with each wingbeat. At dusk, when the shadows grow long and the meadow cools, the scene resets. Snails emerge from beneath stones, sipping the thin wetness that gathers on leaves. Somewhere, a young snail finds a glistening pellet left by the bird. It tastes the trace of seed, the hint of fruit skin, the mineral tang it craves. It swallows the future without knowing it. The cycle does not rush. It has no need. The parasite's calendar is not ours. It is a wheel that turns with ruthless patience, as steady as the swing of a pendulum. And yet, within that patience, there is precision. The brood sacs pulse in daylight because birds hunt by sight. At night, they quiet, retreating slightly when the risk of detection falls. On cloudy days, they may swell less. On bright mornings after rain, they may surge, their colors bolder, their rhythm faster, matching the world's appetite. The puppet master reads the stage and cues its actors without eyes or ears, only chemistry. Bird and snail never sign a contract with the worm. They never agree to take part. But in a world built from hunger and chance, their bodies are pages on which the parasite writes its brief, relentless instructions. Eat here, climb there, shine now, scatter then. From a distance, none of this is visible. You see only the gentleness of a pasture, a bird's brief arc, a snail's damp trail. But if you could peel back the skin of the day, you would see a different play entirely, one of possession and surrender, of signals encoded in color and motion, of survival paid for with someone else's body. By midnight, the bird sleeps in the hedgerow, head tucked under wing, belly warm, with the last of the day's meals. In its gut, the worms rest like coiled threads. By dawn, they will be spinning eggs again. On the grass, the snail, one eye ragged, the other restored and throbbing, has climbed yet another stalk, higher than the one before. Its lanterns flash, and the world answers as it always does. Inside the bird, the parasite has reached what it was always seeking. A warm cathedral of flesh where food never stops flowing. The intestine stretches for meters, folding on itself like a labyrinth, its walls lined with rivers of blood and rippling muscles that knead and push. To most creatures, this would be a place of peril. For the trematode, it is paradise. Here, in this corridor of perpetual nourishment, the parasite anchors itself with tiny suckers, mouthless but unyielding. Its flat, leaf-like body expands, translucent at the edges, opaque at the core where new organs form. There's no face, no eyes, no symmetry of predator or prey. Only a shape, optimized for one thing: survival within another's body. Soon the worms are adults. They do not need time to grow majestic or powerful. They need only to reproduce. Male and female intertwine, bodies pressed in slow, silent embraces that last for hours. Each pairing creates hundreds of eggs, microscopic packets sealed in tiny shells, each a capsule of fate. The bird continues its life, unaware of the hidden industry inside. It gulps fish, seeds, beetles. It preens its feathers, sings its songs. Yet every motion, every heartbeat, carries the parasite's mission forward. With every excretion, the bird scatters the future across the meadow. The droppings fall with a wet slap on the soil, and inside each pellet, thousands of eggs lie waiting. And there the parasite plays its greatest trick. It transforms waste into destiny. For the bird, droppings are nothing more than the end of digestion. For the parasite, droppings are the beginning of a new story. The eggs are armored, resistant to the damp and cold, able to linger for days, even weeks, until a snail finds them. Their shells are tough enough to survive rain, resilient enough to cling to blades of grass. When a snail grazes the soil, it grazes the parasite's map. The cycle is renewed, but the intestine is not a passive backdrop. It is alive, hostile in its own way. Enzymes churn, immune cells patrol, bacteria compete for every scrap of nutrient. The worms must endure this battlefield, and they do so not by fighting, but by blending. Their skin leaks chemical camouflage, tricking the bird's body into ignoring them. They hide in plain sight, tolerated as though they belong. Generations of parasites live and die within a single bird. They weave themselves into its biology so seamlessly that the host often feels nothing at all until the burden grows heavy. In rare cases, a bird infested with too many worms grows thin, its feathers dull, its wings slower to beat. But for the parasite, this is not a concern. There are always other birds. The cycle only needs a few to succeed. And so the intestine becomes both nursery and factory, a place where life is manufactured by the thousands, only to be cast out into the world again. From the bird's perspective, nothing has changed. It still lives, hunts, breeds, but within it, an alien timeline ticks on, one that began in a snail, one that will end in soil, one that cares nothing for the song of morning or the hunt of dusk. For the parasite, the bird is not a companion. It is not even an enemy. It is simply a vehicle, a living bridge between one fragile snail and another. And so, while the meadow breathes with wind and the sky wheels with stars, the hidden cycle turns once more. Eggs scatter, snails graze, eyes swell and glow, birds strike, worms flourish. A silent symphony played out on a stage of grass and wings. The parasite has no audience, but it does not need one. The performance is for itself, and it has lasted longer than human memory. Morning dew hangs heavy on the grass. From a distance, the field looks ordinary, just a stretch of green under pale sunlight, dotted with wildflowers and trembling with the wind. But if you lean closer, if you crouch low among the stems, the illusion breaks. The meadow is alive with tiny beacons, pulsing in colors that have no right to exist on a snail. Dozens of them, hundreds even, eye stalks fattened like sausages, throbbing with bands of green, yellow, and red. Each one pulses not in harmony, but in a grotesque cacophony, as though the field itself has grown, eyes that blink without rhythm. To the human eye, it is unsettling. To a bird's sharp gaze, it is irresistible. The snails are no longer snails in the true sense. They have become props, lanterns on the stage. One by one, they climb to impossible heights, stretching their fragile bodies along stalks that sway in the wind, their shells dangling awkwardly like pendulums. Ordinarily, a snail would never risk this. Sunlight desiccates, exposure invites predators, but the parasite overrides all caution. Higher is better. Visible is essential. The field becomes a living buffet laid out for wings. Birds flock in. Sparrows, starlings, thrushes, common birds that should be chasing insects or pulling worms from the soil, find themselves distracted by the easier prize. They swoop down, eyes catching the flicker of motion, the twitch of a swollen stalk. Beaks strike, sacs burst, parasites spill forward, and another generation rides into the predator's belly. The air fills with brief, sharp cries. Shells crack under talons. Feathers rustle as wings beat upward again. A snail falls, its eye stalk torn away, its body leaking fluid into the soil. But the parasite does not mourn. Already deep inside, new sacs are swelling, preparing to repeat the spectacle. And so the meadow becomes a graveyard of snails and a nursery for worms. The cycle has no pity. A single bird may feed on dozens of infected snails in a day, carrying thousands of eggs in its gut. Each night, as it roosts and relieves itself, it redraws the map of infection in neat circles across the land. By dawn, the droppings are food again, waiting for the next snail to stumble upon them. To a human observer, this is horror masquerading as beauty. Tiny lanterns flashing in the grass, a deadly light show scripted by evolution. Each color, each twitch is not decoration. It is advertising. Eat me and carry my children forward. The snails, for their part, do not resist. Resistance is not part of their programming anymore. Their neurons have been bent, their instincts hollowed out. Even those who survive an attack return to the climb. Again and again they ascend, sometimes with one stalk missing, sometimes both regrown and swollen anew. They are prisoners that rebuild their own chains. And the birds. They are not villains. They are accomplices written into the play. They gain food, the worms gain passage, and the meadow becomes a stage for exchange. Predator, prey, parasite, all bound in a cycle that does not end, does not falter, does not forgive. When the sun sets, the field glows with dim pulses, still throbbing faintly as shadows stretch. By night, the snails are quieter, but the sacs do not vanish. They wait for dawn, for light to return, for wings to pass overhead again. This is the cycle without end. Eggs born in the dark intestine, droppings scattered across the soil, snails infected turned into lanterns, birds deceived transformed into hosts, eggs scattered again. It is a loop as ancient as grass itself, perfected by centuries of trial and error, honed until it operates with the precision of machinery. A machine that eats bodies and spits out generations, running without pause. The meadow is only one stage. The same drama plays out in hedgerows, in forests, in the shadowed edges of villages. Anywhere a snail grazes and a bird hunts, the parasite is at work, invisible, patient, relentless. And so, long after one snail withers, long after one bird takes its last flight, the parasite continues. It does not die with them. It lives in cycles, in chains, in repetitions that stretch beyond the lives of any single host. The lanterns keep glowing, the birds keep striking, and the meadow never falls silent. Stand in that meadow long enough, and the pattern begins to sink in. What looks like chaos is, in truth, choreography. Parasites are not random invaders. They are directors, orchestrating performances across species, bending the lives of snails and birds into a script written long before humans ever walked the earth. And here lies the most disturbing truth. Free will, as we imagine it, may be nothing more than a fragile illusion. To the snail, climbing into the sunlight feels like choice. Its muscles obey chemical whispers. Its neurons fire as if under its own command. Yet every movement serves the parasite. The snail is no longer the author of its story. It is an actor reading lines it never chose. How different are we? Our bodies, too, host invisible passengers. Bacteria in our guts influence mood and appetite. Viruses slip into our DNA and wait for triggers. Tiny organisms have shaped human history through disease, famine, and migration. The parasite in the snail is not unique. It is simply more visible, more grotesque, more honest about its theft of control. The image of a glowing, throbbing eye stalk may haunt us because it is familiar. It shows us what it looks like to lose agency, to become a puppet for something beyond comprehension. The snail climbs to its death believing it is alive with purpose. How many of our instincts, our hungers, our compulsions, our impulses are not ours at all? Yet there is another side to this story. For all its cruelty, the parasite reveals the creativity of life. Evolution is not limited to claws, wings, and teeth. Sometimes its weapons are subtler: a chemical that changes behavior, a color that mimics food, a cycle that spans species. What seems monstrous is, in fact, ingenious. Life invents endlessly, even if the invention looks like horror to us. The zombie snail, then, is not merely a curiosity. It is a mirror. It asks whether survival is the only law, whether beauty can emerge from manipulation, whether control is ever truly ours. It blurs the line between predator and victim, between free will and programming. And it leaves us with a warning. If such manipulation can thrive in a creature as humble as a snail, if a parasite can write its command so deeply into flesh that survival itself is reversed, then the world around us is stranger, darker, and more interconnected than we dare to believe. Somewhere, at this very moment, a snail is climbing into sunlight with eyes that are not its own. Somewhere, a bird is swallowing a writhing sac, carrying forward the cycle. And somewhere in the soil, invisible eggs wait, patient as time itself, for the next unsuspecting body to wander by. The meadow looks peaceful, but every blade of grass hides a battlefield of control and surrender, of lives bent into shapes they never chose. And so, the story of the zombie snail is not a footnote in biology. It is a reminder. Life does not always play fair. Nature is not only red in tooth and claw. It is subtle, insidious, and relentless. It finds ways to turn prey into bait, choice into compulsion, beauty into trap. When we walk across the grass and admire the morning light, we walk through these hidden dramas, unaware that beneath the calm lies an endless war of minds and bodies. The snails climb, the birds strike, the parasites spread. The cycle continues. And if the meadow teaches us anything, it is this: the most unsettling monsters in nature are not the ones that kill us outright. They are the ones that take our will, our choices, our freedom, turning us into lanterns for their hunger, actors for their survival. The parasite does not whisper promises. It does not threaten. It simply rewrites the script, and the host performs until the curtain falls. The question left for us is simple. In the great play of life, how much of what we do is truly ours? If this story unsettled you, if the thought of a snail climbing to its death with glowing eyes makes you shiver, then pause and think, this is not fantasy. This is not folklore. It is happening right now in meadows and fields across the world. We live on a planet where life finds ways to survive not just by strength or speed, but by control. The parasite that turns a snail into a beacon is not an anomaly. It is proof of how far evolution will bend the rules to keep going. It is a reminder that free will is fragile, that even the smallest creature can be rewritten into something unrecognizable. The zombie snail is not just a tale of horror. It is a lesson. It tells us that life is never simple, that survival is never clean, that beauty and monstrosity can live in the same body. It reminds us that the world is full of hidden stories, pulsing in the grass, waiting for someone to notice. So the next time you see a snail gliding slowly across a leaf, look closer. Behind those simple eyes might be something stranger, older, more terrifying than you expect. And remember, what we do not see, what we ignore, is often what controls us most. If you want more stories like this, more glimpses into the strange instincts of nature where horror and wonder collide, don't forget to like this video, share it with those who dare to look closer, and subscribe to the channel, because there are more tales waiting. Creatures that bleed from their eyes to scare predators, fish that climb trees with their fins, mothers that give birth through their stomachs, sharks that outlive empires. The natural world is stranger than any myth, and these are only the first lanterns in the dark. Together, let's keep the stories alive. Let's not look away.